Canelo reiterates the fact that he is not fighting Terrence Crawford at a catchweight, but wait, there's more. He also says that David Benavidez might have to wait and he might fight someone else in May. That's what I want to talk about in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Canelo Alvarez has a brand new interview where he says, quote, 164 pounds is not an option for me. Right now, that's not in my plans. This is what Canelo said regarding a potential catchweight fight with Terrence Crawford. He says, we'll see. If it's a big fight for the people and generates a lot of things, maybe we could see it happen. On Monday, I am going to sit down with Al Heyman to see what comes next. At this moment, I'm the king, and I could do whatever I want. If that's a good fight for September, we'll see. Sometimes the fights are bigger if you wait a bit. And this is, of course, Canelo, his response to fighting David Benavidez. Ego thoughts, let's go. Subscribe to the channel. It's free. I'm the best in the business, and it's not even close. So Canelo, I mean, he's doing more of the same, to be honest. Doing more of the same, kind of fronting on David Benavidez. And I keep telling you the same thing. You guys can choose to believe me. You don't have to believe me. I get paid the same way. It really doesn't matter. So the reality is the pressure is on Canelo. The walls are closing in. People want to see Canelo payday. You want payday. I know that. They want to see him fight a particular guy, which is not out of the realm of possibilities, or it shouldn't be, and that's David Benavidez. Benavidez is a former 2X, 3X, you know, I would say 2X because he had the full body WBC belt, lost it on 2 different occasions for different reasons. But nobody took the belt from him, so he remains undefeated. And then he got a version of the belt, the interim belt, secondary belt with the WBC, and is now Canelo's mandatory. So the pressure just keeps growing. And the more Canelo waits, the more dangerous I think it kind of becomes, because you get to take a peek at both fighters, you know, Canelo versus John Ryder, Canelo versus Jermell Charlo, and then David Benavidez gets seasoned better. Like, to be honest, I think Canelo should have taken, and this is the funny thing, because the Canelo, the Cinnabons, they say stuff like, oh, Floyd Mayweather, he beat Canelo and he was only 23 years old. Some of them even lie and say Canelo was 21 just to make it sound like Canelo was younger. But the fact remains, Canelo fought Mayweather after incessantly calling him out. He was age 23. Floyd beat him, easy work, didn't make it look competitive, looked like nowhere near the same level of fighter. And then people double back with all the excuses. Oh, it's because Canelo was so green. But the irony is this: if Canelo was so young and so green, and Mayweather, that's why he beat him. This is according to the Canelo fans, mind you. Mayweather beat him because he was so young and green. Then Benavidez has been calling out Canelo for several years. David Benavidez right now is 26 years old. His demeanor, you know, his look, he looks like, I don't think people remember that he's only 26 years old. He's very young because he came in the game young, sparring Gennady. Yeah, no, guys, hey, Max is big Kazakhstan, big drama thunder, guys. Right? He was sparring the Kelly Pavliks and world champions and stuff at a very tender age, like 15 or whatever age he was, right? So he's been in the game. His brother has been in the game. So Jose and David Benavidez have been around for so long, people tend to forget that Benavidez is very young. He's like 26 right now, right? So the point I'm making is, if Floyd only beat Canelo because he was 23 and Benavidez has been calling out Canelo Alvarez for the last few years, then why didn't Canelo fight the younger version of Benavidez by now if it was easy picking? Why not get Benavidez when he's green? So the fact remains, the longer you wait for Benavidez, unless he loses to somebody else, which could be what Canelo is hoping for, right? The more dangerous he becomes, because truth be told, he wasn't the finished product when he was fighting Ron Gavriel, because that was a close fight. He got dropped in that fight, but then he came back, corrected that, and beat Gavriel impressively, you know, and hurt Gavriel. I think he broke his nose or jaw or something like that, right? And then he's seemingly getting better and better, but you're letting him get some seasoning, Lowry's. You're letting him get that seasoning in and fight the Caleb Plants. He's already fought Anthony Durrell a couple years ago on the Errol Spence Porter card, and then now you're allowing him to grow even further as a fighter by taking difficult fights, which he's doing. Caleb Plant, problematic style for his style. And then most recently, Demetrius Boo Boo Andre, and he stopped him. Caleb Plant, you know, he definitely took over in the later rounds and battered him in some of the later rounds. But Caleb Plant was a warrior, held on. Benavidez stopped Andre in, what was it, 6 rounds, and retired him on the stool to the point where Andre pretty much quit. And that's how I seen it, right? Too much, too soon, too fast, kind of blew his wad in the first 2 rounds. And Benavidez, he shows power late in fights. Like this, he stopped some tougher guys like Angulo, Kieron Davis and stuff a little bit later, I want to say. So you can't run out of steam and power and energy and cardio in the first half of the fight versus a guy like Benavidez. So as far as I'm concerned, the walls are closing in for Canelo, and it's only going to get harder and harder for Canelo Alvarez because, again, like this is the only caveat to what I'm saying. I think the dangerous fight, non-Canelo, at this weight class, not talking about 75 if he fights Beterbiev or Bivol, but at 168, I've always said the same thing. The top 2 guys to me, because I don't just look at belts and who's undisputed and all that. I look at the quality of the fighter, where they're at in their career, blah, 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 the moves they're making, who they're fighting, blah, 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 right? Me, the top 2 guys are David Benavidez Jr. and David Morrell. David Morrell, I guess you could say it's an asterisk because he has probably less than 10 fights and he hasn't stepped up to the bigger names to see for sure. But I have faith that when the time comes and he gets his step up fights, David Morrell is going to show you who he is. So to me, those are the top 2 guys. Despite Canelo being undisputed, he is the 3rd guy at super middleweight. And I think that's why he's choosing to fight non-super middleweights like Jermell Charlo. That's why he's choosing to fight John Ryder, a guy who's been stopped, who's really not big. Like, look at, if John Ryder stood next to David Benavidez or David Morrell, he's going to look tiny. And so will Canelo, because you look at John Ryder and Canelo, and they were pretty neck and neck. They looked about the same size. They almost looked like Jean-Claude Van Damme and Double Impact. They look like twins or something, like brothers. So the reality is Canelo has a similar build to John Ryder, whatever they call him, the white gorilla or whatever his name is, right? So both of those guys would Benavidez and Morrell they would be dwarfed by the size of Benavidez and Morrell as well. You get what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, Canelo's calling it like, I'm a king, I could do what I want, save the best for last. But this is your toughest fight, and it looks like you're saving that for last. Maybe you want to get more prepared or whatever, or hoping to catch some flaws from a David Benavidez performance. So what I hope happens is Benavidez has taken a very, very tough schedule. I hope he fights somebody that I know can't beat him, like John Ryder, even though I know John Ryder's fighting Munguia. But I'm saying a person like John Ryder, a cupcake, like a fight that Benavidez is just like a stay busy fight, because Canelo be doing that, fighting average eardrum and all that. Like, so I want him to take that type of fight, that style of fight, and preserve himself. Canelo fight whoever he's fighting in May. They said Jermall Charlo, maybe Munguia, or somebody else. They was talking about Terrence Crawford, but I don't know. You know, Crawford, he's saying Crawford would have to come up to the full 168. We'd have to see. You know, Crawford's about his bread at this point of his career, so everything got to make sense for both. And I think the Crawford-Canelo fight is more difficult than people know, because I think you have egos from both fighters. Crawford's like, I'm the only male in history that has been undisputed. You got to pay me. And Canelo, he's like, I'm the king. I do what I want. I was born ready. You know what I mean? So I think that's a little bit more difficult to make, because Crawford, to take the risk of moving up 21 pounds, he's going to want to get what he needs from the equation. That's what I'm assuming, right? So we'll see. But Benavidez is still waiting in the shadows for Canelo. He could talk, I'm the king, and all this other stuff. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But it's only making the fight boil over. And then when it eventually happens, you know, we'll see who comes out on top. But it's going to be a fall from grace if Canelo loses to Benavidez after all that time, because it's going to now look like, oh, that's why you didn't want to fight him. Mark these videos down, bookmark them, do whatever you got to do. I'm the best in the business, and we going to see. And I'm out.